Jason, congratulations with Sleep.
Thank you so much.
As a writer, also besides being a director, did you find the inspiration in experiencing a lack of sleep?
Yes. While writing, not writing necessarily, but when directing the film, I did experience a lack of sleep. I think just because of the stress that I wasn't expecting, and also when we filmed this project, it was the height of COVID, and so we were losing cast and crew members left and right, because of COVID. When they were positive for COVID, they had to what do you say in English? Self quarantine for 2 weeks, which was almost half of the production, and so there were a lot of tough times and trying times that made me lose a lot of sleep. But that being said, we had lots of the cast and crew were great. We all rallied to make the best product, the best film that we could, and even when we were facing these hardships. We try to hustle and overcome the problem together, much like the characters in Sleep.
I have to say, I have to congratulate you for this film because I loved it. I feel
Thank you
like,
so
to
much.
be honest, I feel like the trailer is not doing us justice after watching it.
Oh wow, really?
I was,
I
I
love
was. Go ahead. Sorry.
oh no, I love the trailer, but thank you so much for your love of the film.
Yes, I feel like we get like three films in one that are so very well connected. So, can we start a little bit with the first part? Because I want to be able to touch the three. The introduction of sleep disorder, which does exist, but I feel like sometimes we don't even realize it.
Yes, absolutely. It's much more common than we think, especially to adolescents, but it's quite rare in adulthood to have these symptoms. That being said, the idea of sleeping habits or sleepwalking terrifying one's loved ones is sort of inspired by my personal life. I have some not as severe as the characters in this film, but I have a severe case of sleep apnea, and that's when I forget to breathe while sleeping. And interestingly enough, it's not the snoring, my heavy snoring, that bothers my wife. It's when I stop snoring and when I have this moment of silence, that's when my wife wakes up and realizes that I'm not breathing, and it terrifies her to no end, to the extent that she's unable to sleep afterwards. And I found that interesting, and because this act of not breathing while sleeping is not really harmful to others, but it terrifies. And I thought that there was a horror aspect to that, which I thought I could incorporate into a horror film. And the first act or the first chapter is a lot of those sort of symptoms where it's not necessarily harming you, but it's harming your loved ones, and the horror comes from, the threat of or the threat of potentially losing or your loved one is being harmed, and I think that's where the horror comes from.
And the second chapter, we have Soo-jin, that
Yes.
is like we start seeing this other side
Mhm.
um, that comes out, and it's so scary, and at the end so worrisome. So what was it like for you to make sure to get that out of that character?
That's very interesting because in the initial stages of screenwriting, the it was a rinse and repeat of chapter one. It was just the sleepwalking symptoms gradually becoming even more scary and more threatening, and the wife character reacting to that, which I thought was a bit too repetitive and gimmicky. And only when I found out that the second chapter, the change, the shift in the wife character's psychology and their relationship, when I discovered that aspect of it, that's when I realized this is what the film is really about. And it got me excited about the film and made me want to, and it made me complete the rest of the film in one sitting, the rest of the story in one sitting. And yeah, I think the chapter two, how the wife character reacts to do these horrors, and how these things, uh, influence their relationship and their beliefs. It was very interesting to me, and that's we really delve into that in the second and third chapter.
Now, chapter three, it's so hard to talk about because it can give so much away, but
Yeah.
that's what makes this film a beauty because the ending, we can come up with our own conclusion in a way.
Absolutely.
And that's where I was so excited. So, when you were writing, how many endings did you come up with?
Um, I I in my mind, there's only in my mind, I had one ending in place, but I did realize that it could have multiple interpretations depending on who's watching. And I really realized this after the film came out, or even during test screenings. Um, they call it open ending. They call the ending of Sleep open ended, but it's interesting. It's almost like a closed ending because I realized that the people who left watching Sleep, they all had very concrete interpretations on how they interpreted the film, but only after they leave the theaters and they discuss the film with their friends and family, they realize there are different interpretations that kind of come out of left field, and then they realize that the film itself is quite open ended, which I found very interesting. And uh there was one note I received from director Bong regarding the ending. It was more of a marketing note than a editing or a production note. It was never reveal what you intended for the ending because it will spoil the fun for the audience. And I've been adhering to that tip or note ever since.
I see. So which one was the scenes that challenged you the most? Because I understand this was during COVID. Well, you mentioned it.
Yes, absolutely. The scenes that were challenging because of COVID were any scenes that weren't shot in the set. For example, the uh, outside the house, the parking lot, anywhere outside. A lot of the residents and the public, they were wary about the presence of a crew, the sizable crew that were sort of impeding in their in their safety, and so those were quite tough. But personally, on a directing level, the scenes that I was most worried about were actually the scenes in the beginning, where where the relationship is going well. Because in Korea, in between the Korean assistant directors, which I was one before directing Sleep, we always had this rule that the harder scenes to act and direct are not the scenes where there's conflict, where there's fire, when there's fighting. It's more when there's this subtle, when you have to portray, subtle love, bond chemistry. And because the two characters had to portray a married couple who were in love, I thought these scenes would be the toughest. And that's why I sort of, try to prepare these two actors to, let's go on a date, or like, let's do something fun with each other before for production, so that we can really, harness or enhance this bond and chemistry. But they said, they cut me right off. They said, no, we don't need to do that at all, because they already had, 4 projects under their belt where they acted like romantic partners, and they already had an immense, great friendship between them. And they were absolutely right. There was no need those scenes were the scenes that we shot first, and they absolutely nailed it. And and persuaded me that they were actually this married couple that they were playing.
Yes. Well, yes, you did a great job in setting that happy couple foundation to then turning it into a total nightmare. I
Yeah,
love it.
thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your time and congratulations on this film.
Oh,
After
we
I
ended
watched
already.
it,
Thank you so much.